which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I have anybody that would like to lead us in a prayer? If not, we'll have a moment of silence. Amen. Okay. Andy, would you lead us in a roll call, please?
Mayor Dunn,
Here.
Councilman Inskeep,
Here.
Councilman Lehman,
Here.
Councilwoman Covich. Present. Councilperson Mendoza is absent tonight. Jan Smith, Finance Officer. She's here. Chad Ward, Public Works Director.
Here.
Julie Danowski, Records Clerk. Here. City Attorney Andrew Hand.
I'm here.
Chief Scaglione.
Here.
And do we have anyone else here? Officer Bray
Yep.
is here. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website and City Hall Bulletin Board on Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, and was amended on May 4th to add item number 6.
Okay. Just a couple of quick reminders. Everyone, please turn off your cell phones so they won't go off in the middle of the meeting. Also, want to remind everybody there's an exit straight behind you and one over to my left in case of an emergency. In a minute, we'll have public comments, and if you would please limit those to 3 minutes and address them to the chair, I would greatly appreciate it. Council comments regarding this agenda. Does anybody on the council have any comments about the agenda? Changes, amendments, or anything? We all good? Okay. Okay. Public comments on non-agenda items. So if you're here and want to speak about something that's not going to be covered on this agenda, I would entertain you coming up at this time. Does anybody have anything they want to talk about that's not an agenda item? Yes, ma'am.
I have someone signed up.
Okay, go ahead.
Bridget Pace.
Okay. If you'll come up front here and state your full name and address, I would appreciate it.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Dunnellon. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sure.
My name is Bridget Pace. I live at 2217 Northeast 36th Place, Ocala, Florida, 34479. I am with ABATE of Florida Incorporated Force Chapter. We are the local chapter for Marion County. We cover all of this area. The month of May is Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month. Most of our cities and towns within Marion County, we've already gone and received a proclamation following the governor, our great state of Florida, proclaiming the month of May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. I just wanted to inform you that one of our top missions in ABATE is we have an MSAP program, which is a Motorcyclist Safety Awareness Program that we give to the public for free. And it's to educate the public to look twice, 2 or 3 more times, to watch out for motorcyclists and other vulnerable road users. So I want to thank you again for this opportunity. ABATE originally started as American Brotherhood Against Totalitarian Enactments. We still hold that acronym as well. Later, we adopted the American Bikers Aiming Towards Education to meet our MSAP program. The first one is to stop unfair legislation against motorcyclists. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Okay.
Mayor, I have one more signed up. Paula Rose, she had just signed, sorry, you had signed up on the CRA worksheet and I didn't see it until just now. So yeah, if you have something to come on up.
Hey there, my name is Paula Rose. I live at 122-12116 Wakiwa Circle. Am I allowed to ask questions or am I only allowed to talk?
You really just need to allow, you're allowed to talk.
Okay, noise ordinance on the river.
We're gonna discuss that later, and that's an agenda
It is, okay,
item. Yeah, that'll be an agenda item, you will have time to talk.
great, thank you.
No, river ordinance.
No, she's talking about a noise ordinance.
Are you talking about noise ordinance? I'm sorry, I thought you told me it was it.
You know, yeah, we
Okay.
did talk earlier about that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, over at Gissy Springs, it's like become a party central,
Mhm.
and I recorded it, and this weekend, this guy had, 4 or 5 huge speakers on the back of his boat, and he was blasting the music. And I went around on my kayak and I did a poll, and I was asking all the people, I go, I just need to know, are you enjoying this music, and they're like, no, this is horrible, this is disturbing our family time, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, I want to get the ball rolling on noise ordinance and how much jurisdiction, where does the jurisdiction stop for the city of Dunnellon on the river, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, that's just something that I'm going to pursue in the future, is noise ordinance on the river. Thank you.
Please do. I live on the river and I hate the noise. But the river is very complicated because part of it is in the city, part of it is in the county, and our police can regulate what's in the city, Marion County Sheriff and the Florida Wildlife Commission regulate what's in the county. And so, but if you keep pushing this, we can try to get it slowed down. I appreciate it. Go ahead. Anybody else?
I want to sign that.
Okay. Again, this is non-agenda items, and I'm sorry, I thought you were going to talk about the two records. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. And there's items 1, 2, 3, are the consent items, approval of proclamation for motorcycle safety awareness, appoint Councilman Tim Inspeak serve as the vice mayor until the next election, and appoint Lisa Sheffield as a full-time member of the Planning and Zoning Committee for the next 3 years. Those are the consent items. Do we have, do we have any comments from anyone here about those consent items? I was like, we need public comments on this too. Does anybody have any public comments about these 3 consent items? Again, that's the motorcycle safety awareness, Tim being vice mayor, and Lisa Sheffield serving on the zoning and planning board. You all good with that? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda items?
Make a motion to accept the consent as read.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion up here? No good? Good, Jen? No good? Okay. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Okay. Consent agenda passes. Okay, item number 4. The Motorcycle Safety Awareness Proclamation. How do we do this?
I'll read it.
Yeah, you read it.
And then you would present it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Proclamation number PRO 2023-02, Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Whereas motorcycle riding is a popular form of recreation and transportation for thousands of people in Marion County, and Florida's mild climate and scenic roadways make motorcycle riding an enjoyable experience throughout the year. And whereas Marion County's growing population, seasonal residents, and travelers using Marion County roadways make motorcycle safety an important issue for all drivers, and the safe operation of motorcycle requires the use of special skills developed through a combination of training and experience, the use of good judgment, and a thorough knowledge of traffic laws and licensing requirements. And whereas motorcycling can be an enjoyable activity when safety of paramount consideration and all regulations are observed. And whereas there were 652,596 motorcycles registered in Florida, with 15,357 in Marion County as of March 5th, 2023, along with 1,373,517 motorcycle endorsements in Florida, with 35,321 in Marion County as of July 1, 2021. And whereas to prevent injuries and deaths on roadways, it is important for motorcyclists and motorists to always be vigilant in their efforts to share the roadway and ensure safety for everyone. And whereas motorcycle organizations, clubs, dealerships, groups, and highway safety officials in our county are encouraged to join the Florida Rider Motorcycle Safety Program, Abate of Florida, Inc., and all motorcyclists in actively promoting safe operation, increased rider training, improved licensing agreements, and motorist awareness. And whereas the Motorcycle Safety Foundation has designated the month of May as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, as recognized by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Governor of the State of Florida, to encourage other motor vehicle operators to be cautious and observe these vulnerable road users on Dunnellon's streets and roads. Therefore, be it proclaimed, the City of Dunnellon hereby proclaims the month of May 2023 as Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month, duly proclaimed this 10th day of May 2023.
Okay. You got it? Okay.
And we have accepting the proclamation Bridget Case, who is the president of the Florida chapter of Abate, Florida.
All official. Wow. Okay, got it. Got it.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to leave some stuff
Oh,
for stickers.
Please do.
And if you have any businesses here, we encourage you to call us for that free motorcycle safety awareness program. If you have drivers in your city that need extra training, it's free and it counts because it's a state certified course.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you very
I
much,
agree.
Mayor.
Sometimes when I'm driving, also when I look and I don't see motorcycles, and then I see them,
Yeah.
and it's like, wow. No,
Yeah,
I
well,
get
we
it.
can teach all about that. There's 9 or more blind spots, and it's a really interesting course. So we just did a ladies' church group here a few months ago, and they really enjoyed it.
Well,
And there were
good.
actually some ladies in their 80s that used to ride back in the day, so we had a lot of fun with them.
That would be good. Well,
Thank
thank
you
you so
very
much for
much.
coming. Oh, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So, absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, that's good. Just be careful. Brian, let's see. Like that. All right. Now, Caleb, you ready to go again?
Yep, here we go again.
All right. Caleb's going to review the presentation of our audit report by Powell and Jones. So take it away.
Okay, well, thanks again for having me. This is the audited financial statements of the city of Dunnellon, Florida. I'm going to be starting on page 4 of the report. My name is Caleb Perla. I'm one of the partners at Powell & Jones CPA. We provide the annual audit for the city and have been doing for quite a few years now. This independent auditor's report states our opinion on the financial statements. It says we have audited the financial statements of the city of Dunnellon, Florida for the year ended September 30th, 2022. And in our opinion, the financial statements present fairly the financial position of the governmental activities and the major fund of the city as of September 30th, 2022. So this is what's called an unmodified opinion. This is the highest level of audit opinion. It says that there's no material misstatements in the financial statements. The rest of this letter goes on to state the basis for our opinions, the responsibility of management for the financial statements, and our responsibilities for the audit. There's also 2 paragraphs on the next page which explain about required supplementary information and other information, which we do not audit, but we do compare with the rest of the financial statements that are audited to tell whether there are any significant variations. Those that information includes management's discussion and analysis at the beginning, the budgetary comparison information at the back of the report, as well as the OPEB and pension liability schedules and the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. Next page, page 6, starts the management discussion and analysis section. This provides a broad overview of the activities of the city for the year. And we're not going to go into that in detail, but we're going to go right into the financial statements themselves on page 15. This is the governmental funds balance sheet. This provides essentially a snapshot of the net worth of the city for the year. It shows its assets and its liabilities, the difference of which is the fund balance or net worth for the city. This is presented on a modified accrual basis of accounting. And the reason for that is because the city has to keep track of budgets and ongoing expenses. So if you do accrual accounting, some of those expenses might be accrued back that are really way out into the future. And so to have that current present focus, governmental accounting requires a modified accrual basis of accounting for your governmental financial statements to align up with your budget. And then after this statement, there's going to be a reconciliation that agrees these numbers to the accrual basis, which show all those long-term amounts like debts and assets that you have as well. There's two columns here for the two different funds of the city. You have your general fund, which is the general operations of the city, and then the tax increment financing district or CRA fund of the city, which is a blended component unit. It's of the city, which is controlled by the board of the city. The first section on here is the asset section. Cash is $7 million for the year. Accounts receivable, $193,000. And due from other governments, $114,000. This brings total assets for the general fund to $7.3 million. The liabilities for general fund are accounts payable of $444,000, accrued liabilities of $71,000, and unearned revenue of $957,000. This brings total liabilities to $1.47 million. The net difference between your assets and your liabilities is your fund balance. This is broken up into 4 categories. These are amounts that are restricted, amounts that are committed, assigned, and unassigned. Restricted balances reflect outside restrictions either by state law or otherwise, maybe by grantors, that require these funds to be used for specific purposes. Amounts that are committed or assigned are amounts that either the council approves in their by ordinance or you guys vote on that's set aside for specific uses. But those are, like they say, committed or assigned. They can be changed. They're not like restricted amounts which are external that you cannot change. And then the final one is unassigned. This represents amounts that can be used to fund ongoing obligations and needs, accounts payable, or whatever really the town needs to meet its ongoing budgets. Total restricted, committed, and assigned balances are $3.9 million, and the unassigned balance is $1.9 million. That represents approximately 9 months of general fund operating expenditures, which shows that you have adequate reserves to fund future operations in case if there was a downturn in revenues or if some other extraordinary expense came up, it would be able to cover that. It's an excellent amount in reserves. Total fund balances or net worth for the city for the general fund is $5.8 million. Now moving on to the CRA column, there was cash of $846,000, liabilities of $2,800, and the net difference is restricted $844,000 for community redevelopment. Let's move on to the next page. This is the reconciliation between the governmental funds and the government-wide financial statements. Once again, this is the conversion from that modified accrual basis to the accrual basis. So we start off with our total fund balances for governmental funds of $6.68 million. And it shows those long-term items, such as your net pension asset, which shows that you actually have $1.5 million excess that's it is in the plan for your pension plans that is above what the actuaries have estimated for your future liabilities for the plan. You have capital assets of $5.5 million net after depreciation. You have deferred outflows of resources related to pensions and OPEB obligations of $712,000. You have long-term liabilities such as your revenue bond payable of $1.7 million, OPEB payable of $28,000, and compensated absences, or basically sick and vacation leave, that's due to employees of $86,000, and all those liabilities total $1.9 million. Then you have some deferred inflows of resources on the OPEB and the pension plans of $651,000. And what those deferred inflows and outflows are, just because those are a little bit confusing, but what that represents is sometimes actuaries change their methods for determining what future liabilities are. For example, what the retirement age might be, or how long people will live in retirement. And instead of recognizing that in 1 year, they defer that over time as a deferred inflow or outflow, depending on which way the adjustment went, and it's spread out over time. Like, for example, maybe the employee's estimated remaining life with the company, or with the government. Okay, and so that brings our total net position for governmental activities to $11.9 million. So it was actually increased once you added in all your long-term assets and liabilities. The next page, page 17, is our statement of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balances for governmental funds. Once again, this is on the modified accrual basis of accounting, so basically your budgeting basis. And there's a reconciliation on the next page to the government-wide or accrual basis of accounting. There's 2 columns for your 2 funds. First off is your revenues, so money coming in. You had taxes of $2.2 million in general fund, licenses of $135,000, intergovernmental revenues of $351,000, charges for services of $365,000, fines and forfeitures of $14,000, and miscellaneous revenues of $387,000, bringing total revenues to $3.49 million. Then you had your expenditures, or money that went out the door. These were broken down into the different functions of your government. These are general government of $912,000, public safety of $959,000, physical environment of $219,000, transportation of $272,000, human services of $8,500, and culture and recreation of $68,000. These are your normal operating expenses. The next section is the capital outlay section. So these represent expenditures for long-term assets. So these fluctuate from year to year depending on what projects you have going on. You had $86,000 in public safety, $593,000 in transportation, $11,000 in culture and recreation. The next section here is the debt service section. It shows that you had principal payments on loans of $175,000. This brings total expenditures for the year to $3.3 million. And the difference between that and your total revenues of $3.4 million is the $181,000 there. And that brought your fund balance or net worth from $5.65 million to $5.83 million as of the end of the year. Your tax increment financing district fund has $328,000 in revenues and $94,000 in expenses, which is $233,000 net gain, and that took your fund balance for that fund from $610,000 to $844,000. Like I said previously, the next page has the reconciliation to the accrual basis of accounting. I won't go into all those details, but let's go to the next page after that, page 19. This is the statement of net position for the fiduciary funds. This is basically your pension trust funds for the police, and it has cash of $4.2 million, and restricted pension benefits is $4.2 million. So basically the full entire amount is restricted for a specific purpose, which are those benefit plans. Oh, and I forgot to mention it also has the defined contribution plan in there. I believe $1 million was for the defined contribution plan for general governmental employees, and then $3.2 million was related to the defined benefit plan for the police. The next page, page 20, shows the changes in that net position for the year. It's kind of like its profit and loss. We had contributions from the employer of $39,000 for that defined contribution plan. We had our state contributions of $53,000 and employee contributions of $25,000, bringing total contributions to $118,000. And then we have, the next section is our net investment income or loss, which was a loss of $660,000. Now, this seems like a lot, but if you look at the S&P 500 index, you'll see that the year previous was basically the recovery from the pandemic, and then this kind of, the year end was just exactly the opposite as the drawdown from that recovery that we've had. So the year end almost exactly splits that curve. And so you had a pretty substantial drop off there. We'll see that wasn't really a huge deal because, as we talked about earlier, there's still a net pension asset. You know, when the actuaries looked at everything, they said that, hey, what you owe out is still less than what you have in assets for the plan. So not a huge deal, but, you know, one of those things, you know, you can always look at investments and how they're allocated, but mostly market conditions cost that. And then we had deductions from the plan for pension benefits and refunds for people who left the plan of $156,000. And we had general and administrative expenses, like paying your actuaries, of $27,000. And then your change in net position for these pension plans was $725,000 loss. This took the total net position or net worth at the beginning of the year of 4.9 down to 4.2 million. The next page starts the notes to financial statements section. All those previous statements had a little note at the bottom that says see notes to financial statements. It's because these provide the basis or the flesh to the bones of the financial statements. They provide the why to the numbers, because the numbers are just numbers in and of themselves. This explains those numbers and the general accounting policies and other information for the city. It's very detailed, and we don't have time to get into that today. If you want me to read it, I can, but we might be here till midnight. So let's skip ahead to page 35. One of the more important notes. This is note 4, relating to capital assets. It breaks down the assets into amounts that are not being depreciated and those that are being depreciated. Those assets that are not being depreciated are land, because they don't necessarily have a life. And then construction in progress, which is basically an ongoing project that hasn't been completed yet as of year end. Total ending balance for land was $3.2 million, construction in progress $600,000. Total capital assets not being depreciated are $3.8 million. Then we have our capital assets that are being depreciated. These are buildings of $682,000, improvements of $1.9 million, and furniture and equipment of $2 million, bringing our total capital assets that are being depreciated to $4.6 million. And the next line after that is the accumulated depreciation. Now that represents essentially how much those assets have been used up over time. We assign a useful life to each one of your assets. If, for example, if an asset has a 10-year life, over time we remove that over the 10 years until it gets to 0 at the end of its estimated life. So this negative number of $3 million represents how much those assets have been used up. So most of those assets, except for $1.6 million of them, have been used up over time of those depreciable assets. Total assets net is $5.5 million. And then the section below this, it outlines the depreciation expense, which shows how much has been used up during the current year. And it breaks those down by each one of the activities that the government has. And those total $164,000. Let's move to page 36 now, next page. This first note, the long-term liability, shows a summary of the long-term obligations that the city has. The first one is the revenue bonds payable. It started at $1.9 million. You paid off $175,000 of principal, leaving it at $1.79 million. And you have another $175,000 due within the next year. Then we have our compensated absences of $86,000. This represents amounts for employee sick and vacation leave that's taken each and every year and accrued each paycheck. And we estimated that about $42,000 will be used within the next year. And then finally, we have our OPEB liability, which is $28,000. This represents amounts for previous employees who are retired and use your health insurance plans, and there's a liability that's estimated by actuaries of how much that will cost the city in the future because it causes the amount paid for health insurance by for the city as a whole to go up because of the elderly demographic in those retirees. Next, let's skip ahead to page 52. This is our schedule of revenues and expenditures and changes in fund balance, budget actual comparison. This compares what we have in the budget versus what we had actually spent. I'll just draw your attention to the total expenditures line in the middle of the page. Total expenditures budgeted were $3.96 million and $3.30 were spent. So you had a $649,000 where you were above the budget, where you didn't, below budget, you didn't overexpend. You're well within your budgetary allocations for the year. The next page shows the budget for the CRA. Once again, we'll look at total expenditures. 617 were budgeted, only 94 were spent. So you're well within your budget for the year for the CRA as well. Now let's skip ahead to page 57. This is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance. This shows the different federal and state grants that the city had during the year. I'll draw your attention to two of the larger ones. The first one is the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. You received $921,000, that full amount during the year, but only spent $7,400. This amount was deferred until the next year, so those revenues aren't going to be recognized until they're spent, because that's the way accrual accounting works with the governmental grants. And then the state financial assistance, there was one larger grant for the Historic District Enhancement Plan. That was $45,600, and all of that was spent during the year. Let's move on to page 59. This starts the compliance section of the audit where we discuss, where we have all our different reports on compliance and internal controls. This first report is our independent auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance. On the compliance section, it says that there are no issues that we found during our audit. And on the internal control section, we also did not have any issues that we found during our audit. Next page is page 61. Let's go over to the management letter. This has any findings that we had during our prior or current year audit. It discusses whether they're being remediated or not. We're happy to say that there were no issues encountered during our audit, which is a great job to the city staff. Then below that, it discusses some compliance issues where we have to test for whether there was an federal or financial emergency or whether there was any kind of financial condition that we needed to disclose. There was no issues. The next page has some required data elements related to the CRA funds that's required by Florida statute. And then let's go on to page 63, which has our independent accountant's report on compliance with section 218.415 of Florida statutes. This has to do with public investment of public funds, which you were in compliance with. Next page, page 64, has the city's response to the audit by Jan, where she says that it was an accurate representation of the financials for the year. And then the page after that, page 65, is our communications with those in charge of governance letter. This discloses whether there were any difficulties encountered during the audit, which there were none, any corrected or uncorrected misstatements, which there were none, and any disagreements with management, which there were none. Overall, this was a great audit. We really enjoyed working with Jan. She's really a gem. You guys are lucky to have her. She keeps excellent records, and it's a great audit for us, and we enjoy working on it every year. Once again, it's a pleasure being here and presenting our audit report. Do you guys have any questions?
I do not.
You don't?
Nope.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, okay. How about you, Rex? Jan, y'all have any questions?
Nothing, I'll just go home and in my spare time read through it again.
I met Caleb in the hall, and we kind of joked about a few things, but I had let me just say what I told him. I got to studying this, and First thing I'll tell you is I'm not a pension kind of person, but it appeared to me, and if I say this incorrectly, please correct me, but the pension plans that we have here, specifically the one for the police department, is basically overfunded the way it appears to me, which means we're in great shape with that fund. The police department personnel shouldn't have to worry about if they retire and meet all the requirements for retirement. Their fund is fully funded, basically, the way I read this.
Yep.
And as Caleb and I discussed, that's very unusual for anybody in this world. Usually when you look at a pension plan, most of them are underfunded and they have to constantly be monitoring that and contributing more money. But clearly this pension plan appears to me to be well funded. Yeah, I didn't find anything else in here. Seems like I had a question when I was looking back for it. Just to make sure I understood something. The one question we talked about was the 600,000 on the CRA versus the 300. That wasn't it, though. There's the 1.7. I guess I could put my finger on it, but
Was it in the budget side, the budget schedules in the back?
I think it may have been. That's what it was in the back when I was comparing budget budget to actual. Discretionary sales tax. That's what I mentioned a minute ago. Okay. Discretionary sales tax was budgeted for 52 and we got 340,000. So the difference was $287,000, which was positive, but it just seemed like an extremely large number.
At the time the budget was prepared, the discretionary sales tax needed to go on the ballot for the
Right.
voters to reapprove it, and it was a total unknown.
Right.
So we basically budgeted what we would have received for the remainder of the year, which was the 52,000.
Okay, that's what I thought. I think you said that a minute ago when we were going over this. But yeah, that's what I thought it must have been. It hadn't passed because it didn't pass till November, so when the budget was done, it wasn't in there. Okay, got it. I think that was really the only thing I had. The rest of it looked jammed up to me, so I don't have any questions. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, Caleb, we appreciate all your work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
And Carl.
Oh, and, oh, you saved all the time man there.
He's the one who did most of the day-to-day.
I was gonna say, he probably did all the work, he didn't stand up, so.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor, if I just may say that it was a wonderful compliment that Caleb paid to me, but it's a team effort in keeping our books and records straight. And I didn't do it alone, and the rest of the staff had a big part in it, and I just wanted to acknowledge them.
Oh, being an accountant for 45 years, I know it takes more than one person to get something done. I get it, so I appreciate that, Jan, but we appreciate y'all working closely with them. Okay, get back to what we need to do next. Okay, that takes care of the audit. Now, we have a discussion on parking on the right-of-ways, item number 6. Did I put that in here? Okay, I thought I did. At the workshop meeting 10 days ago, we had a fairly robust discussion about this over on Walnut Street. And after that meeting, I reached out to a number of folks that I knew were over there, some and mostly the people that stood up and talked last week, and have talked to each one of them. I'm planning to meet additional times with more people on Walnut Street to get a consensus kind of what we need to do. From my viewpoint, and I hope the rest of the city's viewpoint, is we just spent over $1 million fixing the drainage and the underground stuff there on Walnut Street, and feel like If we don't take care of it, we'll continue to park on the sidewalks and the right-of-ways that will destroy what we just spent $1 million on. And after discussing with a few of these folks that were here already, I think they all agree they're willing to at least sit down and have a discussion on where we go from here, and I hope to have that completed before we have our workshop next month. But that's what I've done on this. I don't know if anybody else has talked to anybody about parking and right-of-ways and all this.
I've talked to Viola Saturday, we were over there shopping and just got the general idea more of the history since I'm new here.
Right.
About this. It's been an ongoing project and pretty much everybody knew, but it's just been so spread out that.
Right.
So, but it was, and I'm glad to see that you went over, because she told me that you'd gone over and talked to them. And I really didn't want to talk to a lot of people because that's your job and I don't want to say something, not that it's your job, but it's your authority. And so.
No problem,
I
no
do
problem.
respect that.
I just felt like the last meeting, we saw some tension and I actually saw both sides. I mean, the people that were frustrated that we put up the no parking signs and the people frustrated with some of it, recognizing the fact that that was destroying our right-of-ways. And there's two sides to this, I got it, but we'll try to come to a meeting of minds and get this resolved. So hopefully by the meeting next month, the workshop, I'll be able to report something that we can move forward on. Okay. All right. The next item is our public hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number 7, public hearing on ordinance Blue Run Park rules and regulations posted on the city's website April 20th, 2023, and advertised in the Riverland News. Do we have any public comments or discussions?
Mayor, I need to read the public hearing statement
Oh.
first, and you'll take public comments during the public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
Keep me straight.
All persons wishing to address the city council will be asked to limit their comments to the specific subject being addressed. Public opinions and input are valued by the council. However, it is requested that comments are directed at specific issues rather than personal comments directed toward the council members or staff in order to foster mutual respect between the council members and the public. Members of the public in attendance at public forums should listen courteously and attentively to all public discussions before the body and focus on the business at hand. They shall refrain from interrupting other speakers, making personal comments not germane to the business of the body, or otherwise interfering with the orderly conduct of meetings. Members of the public addressing city council and boards or commissions on a specific project or proposal are requested to disclose any personal interest or relationship and any business, professional, or financial interest with any individual, group, project, or proposal regarding the subject matter under review. Members of the public should always err on the side of more public disclosure, not less, in order to provide integrity to the public process.
Okay. It is now 6:34 p.m. I close the regular meeting and open the public hearing to discussion. Public hearing ordinance ORD 2023-01, Blue Run rules and regulations posted on the city's website on April 20th, 2023, and advertised in the Riverland News on April 28th, 2023. Do we have any staff comments?
That would be
Yes, Council, I don't have anything beyond my last report on the ordinance. Nothing has changed since the last incarnation that you have seen. And I can walk through the changes if you'd like, since I know it's been a little while. If we take a look at the ordinance, moving down to 4677, simply there's an addition stating that swimming is not allowed within the interior pond. Made sense to address that since we were taking a look at swimming from the platform, from the river access ramp rather. There's a statement, a policy statement directly out of the plan declaring what the river access is for, use of paddlers and tubers entering or exiting the river, and a statement stating that swimming is not allowed from the river access ramp, which matches what the plan stated prior to changes to the plan last year.
Okay. All right. Y'all want him to read all this, or y'all good with it?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, I am. I've read through it all. I'm good with it, Andrew. Okay. Do we have any public comments? Or anybody in the audience? Okay. Is anybody signed up for this, Mandy? Okay. One of you fine ladies want to stand up first? If you just give us your name, address, and again, please discuss your comments and limit them to 3 minutes.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Hi, my name is Amanda Niedermeyer. My address is 7414 North Cricket Drive. I've lived in Dunnellon since I was 10 years old. I'm 42. I've raised 4 children. My husband and I have lived here, met at Dunnellon High School. He played football. After school, he'd go to the river at the bridge, jump in, go swimming like all the football players do. My son, when he graduated, before he graduated, same thing, jump in at the Blue Run Park. Before it was Blue Run Park, never any problems. I mean, y'all put the gates up to stop any of that kind of craziness. Just jump in, and I walk the river trail. At the end of the trail, I start in Citrus Side, come over here, jump in, swim, walk back to my car the other way. I've never seen any issues with it. My father-in-law started House of Jacob Church right there. He got it from the Urshons, acquired it from the Urshons. He was pastor there for many years, and now my brother-in-law is, Jack Niedermeyer, is the pastor of Life Springs Church. And we have baptized several people there at that specific spot. I have been baptized there. I don't see any issue. My kids swim there with their friends in the evening. I understand during heavy traffic time when people are trying to get in and out and rushing, and you know, there's a lot of going on, but around 5:30, before the gators come out and eat, you know, just to jump in and swim a little bit. I also work on the river. I take care of several VRBOs. I know many of our longtime lifeguard Dunnellon people that have done the same thing, and that I love hearing our Dunnellon stories. Swimming there, and that was the first like rural swimming spot besides the city beach, and we used to ride our bikes off the dock before that went away many years ago. And I understand if there was maliceness or you know, people were destroying property, and I know they have the bridge that they jump off. I jumped off that when I was a teenager. I understand the liability and the hurt, but really people are not, they're going to do that on kayaks anyway. When they're on a kayak, go to that thing and jump off. We're just literally jumping in, getting out, cooling off, going for a walk. I walk over to Swampy's, get a sweet tea at the bar, and come back, you know, and walk down the trail. It's not really anything that I see should be a problem just to jump in. It's really taken away from our local people. And I just saw this literally 20 minutes ago on Facebook. I don't even know her, but I just saw them comment. I was like, no, they can't take that away. And so I just hope y'all really reconsider this. We're Dunnellon residents forever, and we just love our river, and we're already squeezed on where we can go and how we can get in. And I understand there's a city beach. I have not been there in forever just because it's changed so much. And I get the blessing of being able to work on the river, and I do pull a lot of hydrola. I can't tell you how much I pull from there. So I love our river as much as anybody else does. And I work with several. I know the guy that does one rig at a time. I actually took care of his home before he acquired it from Andy Burwell. And I have been in Dunnellon, like I said, forever. My kids, my grandson now. So I just ask y'all to reconsider. That's all. It's just a great spot for people.
Thank you. Okay, next.
Okay, Paula Rose, 12116 Wakiwa Circle, Dunnellon. Number 1, can this vote be postponed until we do more research on solutions tonight? That's my question. I'm not a beach goer. I can walk to the beach, I'm not going. Is it true that the beach closes at 5:30? If it closes at 5:30, why can't we have state park hours like closes at dusk? So that means in the wintertime it closes earlier, in the summertime it closes later. Number 3, I understand the problem. I am a big-time kayaker, paddleboarder. There are times I can't get on that bridge or off that bridge. I have picked up dirty diapers, straws, cups, towels, shoes. It's disgusting. I keep rubber gloves with me to pick up garbage along the entire river, but nothing is worse than at that ramp. So I do understand the concern. However, I think that there's better solutions than shutting it down. I'm also guilty of taking a long bike ride and jumping in after a bike ride for about 15 minutes and then going home. I don't live on the river, but I live right by the river, so I use that ramp a lot. Signs really suck, but maybe we could put some signs up saying that only swimming, you know, in small groups or something after a certain amount of time. For instance, the last tuber probably gets off at that bridge about 5 o'clock, 5:30, something like that. After that time, being that I bike a lot, I see the ramp is practically deserted and nobody's using it. Bathing, I have seen people soaping up and bathing. I think that's an issue. I think there should be some kind of a sign or some kind of a ticket for actually taking a bath at the ramp. So I'm asking again, can this vote be postponed? I don't even know, I haven't been following, I don't even know how this even came about, who complained about this, but I do see why it has been complained about. But I do think that shutting it down to people that want to take a quick dip is really, really radical. And if there's any way that we can postpone this vote and come up with better solutions and readdress this, that would be really nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments? Yes, Sam?
Do I need to come up?
Sam's coming. Then you come.
I'm sorry.
No.
My name's Sam Martian, I live at 19293 St. Patrick's Drive. And I agree with her, I'm one of them. I go down there, jump in, cool off for 5 minutes, get back out, go sit on the bench, dry up, go home. I walk over there a lot, get in the water there. But I do see people that congregate, hang out there, bring coolers down there. They got little kids, they just hang out there like it's a beach. And that really shouldn't be, so if you want to not put a sign up that says no swimming, it should say no loitering and no congregating in this area. That's my opinion anyway. Someone just jumping in, cooling off, getting out isn't blocking any tubers or kayakers going in and out for a quick 5-minute cool off. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Sam. Okay. Go ahead.
I've been gone for a long time recently because my husband just died.
Right.
Okay?
I'm sorry.
So I haven't been here for any meetings for a long time because I was trying to keep him alive as long as I could.
Right.
So I have very little knowledge of what I've just been hearing here. But I live, you know where the curve is on the river? There's a dock that sticks out there pretty far. There's two, one next to each other. I'm on the right-hand side of those. I have never seen people misusing that part of the river. I have never seen people being nasty on that part of the river. I have never seen, and I sit on the back porch a lot. I have never seen any problems in that immediate area. So I'm not sure if I'm hearing things that aren't being said or if there's a lot of confusion because like I said, I spend tremendous amount of times out on one of the longer docks where you make the curve and never see anything that appears to me to be interfering with anybody else. A couple of years ago, there were some people using that and they came down there like a bat out of something nasty and it got cleared up very quickly. So at this point, I see, and like I said, I'm out there every day. I'm not on the water. I'm in my back porch, which is an open area. And I don't see any misuse or very rare misuse of that river in that area. So thank you for listening to me.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else? Anybody on Zoom? Okay. All right. Okay. It is now 6:47 p.m. I close the public hearing. discussion on ordinance ORD 2023-01 and reopen the May 10th city council meeting. Does anybody want to address some of the questions that were just raised?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'll start with Mary Ann. Mary Ann, it's the Blue Run Park that we're talking about, not the city beach. Okay, so everything's good there.
That makes a huge difference. Thank you.
Okay.
Then a couple things I'd like to address is the city beach closes at 6, not 5:30. And I live right next door to Mary Ann. I fish that area a whole lot, and it's right, the stained water actually comes right up to there. I'm telling you because I fish a lot. I know exactly where the gators are at, and they get pretty active just before dusk. So we really don't want to do close at dusk. We want the small kids out of there before dusk, and for safety reasons. But it's 6 o'clock, not 5:30. As far as installing signs, we talked about this at Blue Run Park. We don't want to be liable for any incidents that happen with swimming. So we're not going to put up signs that allow any swimming due to the liability reasons. Somebody gets hurt, I mean, I don't need to explain to anybody what a litigious society we are now. So we just want to stay out of that. Now I have some more comments. I just want to address what you all brought up. This ordinance has been in play for quite a while now. And I understand the input from others to allow access from the ramp for swimming after peak hours. One of the major issues, though, is it gets way too complicated for enforcement. And with the congestion and the small percent of people that just don't seem to be able to do right is what's prompted all this. And unfortunately, like too many things, it seems like this day and age, the masses are going to have to pay for the few that just can't follow the rules. But it's, we can't put up wishy-washy stuff, allow this, allow that, with too many parameters around it, and expect our police department to be able to enforce it. It gets really touchy for these folks here, and that's why an ordinance was created, so that so we can address the situation that's happening during the crowded hours, but it can't get so complicated that there's too many loopholes in it, and which negates the enforcement. And that's all I got.
I'd just like to say that I agree with Tim, the liability issue. It is unfortunate, but the times they are changing. We've seen the numbers of people that are coming from KP Park. The report last year was just KP Park alone put 45,000 people in the river in kayaks. Okay. And then the tubers and so on, and then the other outfitters. And it's become an exceedingly crowded situation right between 4 and 4:30. Been out there myself. I don't usually kayak the lower part of the river unless I have company and they just want to go downstream, making an easy trip, whatever. And then you see what happens around 4:30 p.m. You see people coming in and literally waiting and being impatient, and some people will drag their kayaks up on the launch and then just leave them like on the middle of the launch and go get their transportation or whatever, and you can't even get your craft out of the river. People are parked and lined up there, and usually because it's groups of people that come together. And now you throw in the swimmers. And here's also what we're working on is an anti-mooring ordinance, because people anchor their boats just a little bit downstream from the ramp, put their anchor down, and now they have a swimming party off of their pontoon boat, or whatever they have. And that's gonna stop that too. So, and the other thing is, again, unfortunately, people come to our town and they disrespect the common decency of doing what they're supposed to do. We see continually, I saw it this weekend again, people get on the west side of the riverbank, right at the bridge. There's no trespassing signs, and they're having a little party on the bank, and they're jumping off the bank into the river and swimming. Okay, so it's not about those people who live here in town and behave like civilized people. Unfortunately, we have more and more people coming that just don't pay attention to other people in the river. Somebody's gonna not get hurt, somebody's gonna get killed. And as we also know, we cannot bar either ski jets or airboats from entering the Rainbow River. And now we know that there are 22 clubs in Florida that travel about. These are the people that run in packs of 15 to 25 people on their ski-doos, ski jets, whatever you like to call them. And they're moving up and down the river right about the same time that people are coming down the river. It's just not safe anymore to allow public swimming there, unfortunately.
Okay. I'm gonna make a couple of comments and then we'll go forward. Like you, I've been on this river since 1966, okay? I used to jump off that bridge before there was any way you could prevent me from jumping off that bridge. There was a railroad bridge just down from down on the other side of Swampy, which is now gone. I used to jump off that. The one in Blue Cove, I used to jump off that. I mean, I used to jump off all of them, okay? So I get it. Of course, we used to ski on the river too, and that's gone. As far as this ordinance, like Tim said, we've been working on this ordinance for months. And unfortunately, in April, it got kind of sidetracked because of another issue we had to deal with, and so now we're bringing it back. I'm sorry you hadn't heard about it till now. If you haven't, it's been going on for months. Again, my problem is just what we're saying. If it was a few of us that I think are civil in this world and would treat everybody in the rant with respect, I think it's perfect. I think we don't need doing it. But the problem I see is, like you said, people come down there, they bring their coolers, they bring their kids, and they just sit, or they swim right there. We had a situation that I'm aware of where somebody tried to get a kayak out of the water and happened to bump into a child. The parent of that child almost beat up the guy with the kayak. Okay, we can't have that. And the only way I can prevent that, or we can prevent that, is say you can't swim here. And I'm sorry. And I know that's terrible, but we have instances there that are happening, and we just can't afford this. And again, we're looking at it, like we said, over at City Beach, leaving that open longer. But again, I'm worried about the alligator now. But and we got the KP hole. I mean, people can swim in this river now, and I know that bridge and that whole area has always been a place where people swim. I get it. But we've got people, unfortunately, that are abusing this, and somebody's going to get hurt. And like Jan said, we're actually working on another piece of ordinance, and I hate ordinance, and I hate rules, I hate regulations, but will prevent anybody within 150 feet of that ramp parking a boat. Because people do park right there, and they jump off, and they swim, and congest the area even more. And we're going to prevent them from putting an anchor out and doing that, because we can do it within 150 feet of that ramp. That hasn't happened yet, but it's fixing to. Okay? And again, it's mainly for safety. I get it, okay? I really do. I love this river. I wish more people could swim there. But it's just gotten to where, until we get the people to recognize they shouldn't do certain things, we got to deal with it. I'm sorry. Okay. Now, do I?
can we still baptize there?
I'm sure we can work something out, because my church baptizes in the Rainbow River. So I'm sure we're gonna have to work out something, but I'm not sure where it'll be. It may be at City Beach you can baptize, but we'll figure out something.
That's what I was gonna add in. because
But if you close the city beach at 5:30, we get guys sometimes, my father-in-law has had a guy at midnight needing to be baptized.
Okay,
And I mean,
That
at
won't
the
be a
top
problem.
before the gators, boom, baptized, you're done, you're good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it all depends and varies.
Time of the day.
right.
Rules.
There's again, because I live right next to it, there's nothing that goes on in City Beach that I don't see. And they baptize there quite regularly. It's generally in the morning before the crowds come in that use the beach. But there's baptisms that go on all the time there.
My son was baptized there.
Right, so, that spot's definitely available.
Yeah.
And it's a good spot, slopes right in nicely.
Okay. I have a motion to move on ordinance ORD 2023-01 to be read by title only.
Second.
Okay. Andy, you want to read that by title only? Huh?
Need a vote.
Do what?
Need a vote.
Oh, need a vote. I'm sorry. Any discussion?
Second it.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Ordinance number ORD 2023-01, an ordinance of the City of Dunnellon, Florida, amending Chapter 46, Article 3, Blue Run Park of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Dunnellon by creating rules prohibiting swimming within the park's interior pond and from the river access ramp, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date.
Okay. Propose a motion to move to approve ordinance 2023-01.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes. Okay. And again, I'm sorry for the folks that swim there that do what they're supposed to do, but we've got a problem with people just parking out there with their kids and their coolers, and you've got people on tubes, you got people on kayaks getting in and out, and it's just too crowded. I'm sorry. Okay, item number 9, Blue Run Park trail signs. Accept public comments. Any public comments?
I don't have anyone signed up, sir, and I do not have anyone on Zoom.
Okay. We have a proposed motion to authorize the expenditure of $771 plus marine quality mounting post on Blue Run Park Correctional and what's this? Interpretive signs?
Interpretive.
Interpretive signs, okay. Do I have a motion? Okay, second?
No, second.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
We got your post in here, right?
Right. Yeah, Councilperson Julianne asked in the workshop if we put together, use a budget project checklist. And so
Yeah.
did that, I sent it, and I'd like to thank everybody that's had input to it. I'm not going to go through it. It's extremely busy. Andy has offered to, and so far done a great job helping turn it around so it's a lot more user-friendly.
Forward.
Right.
Gave me a headache when I.
I hope we can shorten that a little bit.
Right, so I'm not going to go through the whole thing. Okay, basically, the total estimated project cost is going to be just under $2,000. And where those numbers come from is yeah, it is busy, Mandy. The material is $896, okay, and then we have the labor costs in there for the for Public Works, and those costs bring us up to just under $2,000. Now, issues with this is one of the questions is the project listed in this year's budget? The answer, unfortunately, is no. And now that brings us to do we want to approve a project that is not budgeted? And if we do want to move forward, where are the funds going to come from? And I'm telling you, I've gone back and forth on this one. I know we keep saying things like $2,000 aren't much money. We got it over here, we got it over there. But the last number that I remember from a month or so ago was we've already had to make amendments to the budget for, the last number was $47,000 that I've seen. And at some point, my opinion is we have to have budget discipline. Things need to be put in the budget. So we got the budget cycle coming up. It sounds like maybe a fine project, but it should be put in the budget cycle and accounted for that way. This seems like to me we got too many like to do this, like to do that, and we're always just finding money for stuff. And the lack of budget discipline just pesters me. And that's, I'm done.
I'd like to respond to that, and that is, this is a ready-to-go project. I don't think you can put public works labor in as part of the budget. You know, these employees are here to do things like this, stick signs in the ground. And I think we owe those people who have spent so much time working on Blue Run Park and the partners, including Duke Energy, our partners in Marion County, Rainbow River Conservation. I just think it's a slap in the face to put the brakes on this for $2,000. I think you should go on with it. It's not going to break the city's budget to spend these $2,000. And this is a ready-to-go project.
Wally Chan has a comment.
Do you have any comments?
I'm sorry, Jan Smith.
You all can talk and I'll just.
Well, I know we'll find the money if we need to, but, you know, I kind of agree with you. I mean, we've got to start getting better about putting things in a budget. You know, of course, the three of us weren't even here when the budget was done. So we're sitting here looking at something and it's $1,000 or $2,000. It really doesn't matter. It wasn't in the budget. I guess my only question is, we already bought the signs.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a ready-to-go project.
No, we've not bought anything.
And you say, oh, we can't.
We hadn't paid for the signs, right?
We've purchased nothing.
No, the two estimates that we received from Mr. Vivert for the signs, for the interpretive signs, was a total of $725.
Right.
Which RRC offered to donate $250 towards that expense. And then the directional signs, the total was $296, and that came to $771 that the city would be expending for the signs. Then Public Works had an estimate of $75 for the marine quality posts that would be needed, and $50 for the hardware that would be needed for the, I guess, mount the signs to the posts. But Councilman Inskeep had estimated an additional approximately $1,000 worth of staff time to include the time it would take Public Works to handle the installation, the purchase of the mounting equipment and whatnot. I will say this, the Public Works employees all are already partially allocated to Parks and Recreation, because we are responsible for some of the maintenance responsibilities and to assist the county at Blue Run Park, as well as all of our other parks that we take care of. So part of their salaries are already allocated there, so it's not like we're taking a roads and streets employee and sending them to do work in the park.
Right.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense, but that money's allocated to clean restrooms, fix stuff and stuff like that, and we're using up that money. That money is getting spent, pretty much on track. And there is no business that does not put their, when they do a project, include their resources as a cost.
And I'd just like to repeat what Mandy just said. Our public works people are allocated during their day spent here in the city of Dunnellon to work within our parks. Planting a sign is not a big deal.
I'm not saying it's a big deal, I'm just capturing the costs.
I know you can't count the labor because these people are on payroll, they come to work. And if Chad asks them to go there and he supervises, they put the signs in. There's no extra expense. So we're talking about then, as it states here, $771 plus hardware, and what was it for posts, $50?
$75 for the posts.
$75 for the posts.
Hardware.
I mean, this is this is a little too trivial, and especially because, again, we have people that have spent so much time volunteering their hours, they don't get a cent. Bill River and Rainbow River Conservation people, all the time they have spent. I mean, this is something they have worked hard on. It's ready to go.
I understand that, but we need to get in front of the budget process, not behind it.
The next budget thing comes up, we'll look at it definitely. But let's go on with this project.
Okay, as an accountant, I'm going to put my accountant hat on. I agree 100% what Tim has argued. As an accountant doing cost accounting, which nobody wants to learn about tonight, you have to include all costs that it takes to perform a function. And I think it's $1,900 based on what this says. That said, I also agree that we need to get better about budgeting for things like this. And I hate to say it this way, but we got to start thinking ahead of time. What do we think is coming down the road? And get better about anticipating something or putting something in everybody's budget that would cover things like $2,000, okay? That all said, I think we just go on and do this for whatever it costs, is my opinion. So, do I have a motion, or I've already done this?
I think Jan Smith had some input along.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second.
I just wanted to say, in doing projects, you have to include the cost of labor if you want to know what the true cost
Oh, I
of something
understand that.
is.
Right.
That being said, the only truly unbudgeted piece that we would do a budget amendment on is the cost of the materials. Because the labor's already factored in the budget.
Right.
In government, cost accounting is not practiced in government.
Okay.
But I get it as far as how much did this whole project truly cost us?
Yeah.
And it's going to cost $2,000 to put some signs up. It's not just going to cost $771 for the cost of materials. And from a budget perspective, probably, I'm not going to guarantee it, but I believe the budget would probably be able to absorb the $896.
And what source would it come from, Jan?
It would be expensed in Park and Rec. So
General fund?
It would come out of general revenues.
Right.
So that's where it would come from. If we would do a budget amendment, my recommendation, since it's not a capital item, it would just come from unrestricted operating funds. So, and what I mean by the budget being able to absorb it, we typically don't spend every dime. So it's just going to get absorbed in place of something that didn't get done. Maybe a restroom being cleaned, for example, for lack of a better example. So
Are you
I
saying
agree
we
with-
have the funds in, there's no way I can vote yes for a project if we don't have the funds.
We have it in reserves. Can I guarantee that it's in the budget? no, I can't, because I don't know for sure what we're gonna spend in the latter part of the year. My presentation as of March 31st, I'm showing a small surplus. So yes, as of March 31st, we could do this project.
Gotcha.
But we're already in May. I don't have a full analysis as of right now. But I just know that typically we don't spend all our funds. So hopefully the budget could absorb it and we wouldn't have to amend the budget. But either way, it's coming from general unrestricted money.
Right, right.
Your agenda summary said you were using it from 125 Park.
I'm sorry, I did not review it. 125 Park, I apologize.
That's what I thought you said last week. We were talking about.
Yeah, and I do apologize.
Gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
trying to speak off the top of my head and I shouldn't.
No, no.
That's all right.
You've got too many budget numbers
I
on
do,
your mind.
I really do.
But no, I remember we talked about this last week, and you said that there was
And
plenty of money to cover
we-
it, 125.
We did amend the budget to bring the full amount of the donations in to allow projects to be developed. So that's where
There
it
you
came
have it.
All right, so we got it. All right. Can I have a vote on this?
Yeah.
All in favor?
I'm ready to vote, and I understand Mrs. Covey's thing. I hope likewise.
And I understand also where you're all coming from about we need to tighten up our belt and look at every
Right.
line item, everything that's proposed. I get it.
Okay.
I'm ready.
All right,
As
all in
Blue would
favor?
say, I get it.
All in favor of this motion?
Aye.
I
All opposed? Okay, it passes. Well, I think these are all very good points. I mean, we got to get better with building budgets, and I look to all you guys out there helping us do this. But again, and I know it's hard. I mean, like something like this, did you would have known a year ago that we would need new signs? No, but we probably ought to just stick $1,000 in the budget every year just in case, because these signs get gone.
Well, we also need to educate everybody that comes up with stuff so that they understand, great idea, great thing, but it's gonna go into next year's budget cycle.
Sure.
And we need to start that process now, as we're starting this new budget cycle.
Totally agree. Got it.
I'm done.
All right. All right, item number 10, salary study. Was that me? It was, wasn't it? Okay, I thought it was. This comes down to some discussions, of course, we just had with our police officers, and the concern that they weren't adequately being compensated. And I think we need to determine what is the correct compensation for our police officers and our regular staff. And there seems to be an overall feeling that everyone here is probably underpaid. That may or may not be true, and as far as how much, I have no idea. I can tell you that what information I have seen just on the police, and I think Bradshaw gave us something the other day, and I've seen a couple of things that generally our starting salaries for our police officers appear to be about $2,000 under market, but that's just a guess compared to other cities of similar size. My thought was that we probably ought to have a study done of not just the police officers, but everybody on staff here to get an idea of what is a reasonable and correct compensation for the people on our staff. And I'm not qualified enough to do that study. So my thought was to hire somebody that may know how to do that. And the lady stood up at workshop and said she could do it for about $5,000. Again, it's not in the budget, but that's what a cost would be. I guess what my thought was here in putting this on the agenda was we ought to have a discussion first, do we want to try to figure this out? And second, how do we want to figure this out? Do we want to try to do it ourselves, or do we want to hire somebody to get it done? And I open that up for all discussion.
Well, I don't begin. You're just talking about tightening the belt.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, and spend, to have an advisory service and pay them $5,000. I think that's a little off the wall myself. I think that the police department is going to be the easy one. I mean, sit down. We already know what other cities are paying. In fact, we were given a chart our last meeting. And I think we can sit down with our police department employees, and of course they have the union too, their union rep, whatever, and do them separately and get that done first. So let's make this a two-part project. Number one, the police department, because I don't know how y'all feel, but yeah, I'm sorry that those police officers left to Marion County Sheriff's Office Department to work, but I also sincerely understand why. So if we're going to hire on new people, we need to make certain that it's not talk anymore, we're going to raise your salaries. So let's do the police department first. And then when that's taken care of, let's go to part B and consider raising the salaries of our in-house staff here.
Okay. Yeah, we had the lady in at the workshop, and one of the questions I asked was how much of a lead time, and it was 45 days, and today is the middle of March, or excuse me, the middle of May. And at the end of July, in the month of July, we have to decide on a new police chief. And the reason I ask that is because I think it would be very fair to the people who are going to apply for the job and our officers to know by, say, July 1, what we are going to offer, so when they take the job, they could come in with a good sense of, we met our obligation, but we all raised our hand and said, yes, we want to support you, and we see there's a problem, and now we've got a timeline, and she said 45 days, and to do what you said, to split it in two parts for right now, to get the police department squared away, so that, so probably in the July meeting, we are going to be appointing a new police chief. But then they will have an idea of what the salary structure is going to be, and we can say that we did our part. So the farther down the road, they're going to say, well, these guys all agreed to it, and then nothing happened. That's not the council I want to be on. I want to be on the council that says, we are going to handle this for people, and we're going to take care of it.
Okay? Tim? Just going to surprise everybody, but I'm going to be the Grinch in the room. I want everybody to understand that $1 an hour raise costs $3,000 a year for taxpayers. So we need to understand that, number one. And I'll start with the police, because this is what's driving the issue. And I'm going to speak my mind, not anybody else's. I'm not spending money reacting to the police department issue. The mass exodus is twofold in my mind, and this is going to be a little harsh. The first thing is, I believe this whole situation was created by a disgruntled executive spreading hate and discontent. I won't touch that anymore. Also, it's normal to have turnover after younger people reach the 5 to 6 year mark to advance their careers. This small police department and what Dunnellon can pay is, to me, it's a twofold, two-tier type employee thing. It's for younger folks that are going to come in and get a great start and then take their next step to bigger and better things. It's also a good place to come for folks that have retired from another department, still aren't ready to stop working, and they can add to their make money and add to their retirement and get a second retirement. The other item I asked, this is nothing new here for Dunnellon. It's not anything new for many small cities. This has happened many times over the years. Another option, all right, is at some point, I think this council, the entire council, needs to be involved in how we're going to structure this police department. One of the options that I'm throwing out there, at least for this discussion, is if we restructure the police department with less people, then we will have more money, okay, to spend on whatever the amount needs to be. And I don't know that that's possible, it just came to mind, and I'm just putting it out there. Do we truly need the number that we just had, or can we do something different that will give us, we can split that pot of money amongst fewer people? Any study that we do, okay, it must include all the elements of compensation presently offered, not just the salary portion. The city has a very generous paid time off plan. And to just look at salaries is just a tiny portion of the entire compensation package. And next bullet is kind of on the pulpit. Any decision on our part needs to be taken into consideration what taxpayers can afford in a small, low-income city like Dunnellon. That drives me back to the 1 hour raise is $3,000 a year. And my last comment, and I'll get off of it, is in this age of internet information, I believe we can perform this study when we need to do it. I've already developed months ago a spreadsheet that has 2023, every position, what their salary is, what it equates into an hourly wage, what the paid time off compensation is, add that to the hourly wage, what the non-paid, I'm sorry, yeah, and then what all the paid time off is, and how that equates in, to the, as a matter to the salaries also. And that's all I got.
So, how do you want to proceed with this? Sounds like you're thinking we can do this internally.
I'll send this spreadsheet out. I sent it out a couple months ago, but just, you know, wasn't the timing for anybody to take a look at it and do anything with it.
Okay.
I'll resend it so it can be checked for accuracy, and then it'll at least paint the whole picture of what we're looking at. And then I think that'd be a good starting point anywhere for where we want to go and look at what other cities actually do for each element of the compensation.
Okay. All right. That's what we need to do. I just feel like we need to address this sooner rather than later. Kind of like Rex. I mean, we're going out 90 days and start looking at securing a permanent police chief. And our temporary chief is trying to hire people right now. He needs to have an idea of what our starting salaries are going to be. So we need to get on this sooner rather than later. And again, I want to address all the salaries of everyone here, just to make sure that our salaries are in line with what our competition, so to speak, is saying. And again, I'm not saying we need to have salaries that are equal to, say, Ocala or anybody of that size town. But to me, they should be very similar to towns of similar size. And what I've seen of towns of similar size is we're about $2,000 short on police, but I don't know what we are on everything else. So, yeah, if you would get that out, we need to get on this pretty quickly. Okay.
Yes, I agree. We need to do it. We need to do it very fast.
Okay.
And the only clarification I would like to make again is it's not just about the wage. It's about the entire compensation package. And that's what we need to compare to.
I agree. And the other thing is, do we know what the other towns are paying for time off and all like that too? And I don't know.
Right, I'm sure we can find that out. And if we can't, we'll see what we can find out and what we can't find out.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we definitely need to put that on the agenda for next month in the workshop. What are we going to do? We'll get Tim's schedule and start working on this. Okay. All right. The second quarter general fund budget update. Jan Smith.
Okay, I'm on again. Hopefully I won't try not to miss
Okay.
me. I'm gonna switch so you can get through better. Okay, let's locked up. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay. The first schedule is, and this is going to be just general fund, since I gave the CRA presentation at the CRA meeting. These are the revenues, and again, this is as of March 31st. If we go straight to the bottom, we have collected 35.5% of our budget, almost $1.7 million in revenue. Some of the highlights, for example, I'm projecting an increase in line number 2, licenses and permits, about $7,300, and this is just based on rate of collection, and it's primarily due to business tax receipts and permit penalties, why there's more revenue projected. We go down a little more further to line 5 under federal grants. We received reimbursement for Hurricane Ian where we incurred the expenditures prior to September 30th. And reimbursement actually came in this current year, $10,368. If you go down a little further, let's go down to line 16. These are the transfers from reserves, primarily capital reserves for projects. There's a reduction of $143,000 because of a pause in some city projects, such as the city beach shelters. So just bottom line, we're looking at a net decrease of $125,600 in the revenue side of the budget, because the transfers in aren't true revenue. It was revenue earned years ago that we're just bringing back into the budget to spend now. Do you have any questions? And this looks to be right on schedule, about as far as the percentage of collection. You'd think it would be at 50%, but not when it comes to collecting tax revenue. There's always a month lag on tax revenue, and that's any tax revenue, your communication service tax, your gas taxes, as well as your property taxes. Property taxes are actually due March 31st, but some people pay late. Moving on to expenses. We have spent, as of March 31st, almost $1.4 million out of our $4.7 million budget, or 29%, which is good. We have more revenue coming in than we do, the expenses going out. I am projecting a very small surplus at this point in time, about $18,000. Some of the major highlights, if you look at line 22, legal, a slight overage due to greater than anticipated council expenditures. Community development, and again, this is as of March. So right now, community development has slowed way down. When we hire a manager, that could pick up speed. When you discuss your short-term rental ordinance, that could pick up some speed if Andrew's services are needed. So again, this is just as of March 31st. It's a very small difference considering how legal expenses have run in prior years. Moving on down to comprehensive planning and development. That is your community development department. And I'm projecting that around $13,000 under budget, and it's primarily due to the vacant department head position. On line 24, we're coming in as of March 31st under budget for IT expenses, where we need Andy Matthews' help. Let's see, building repair and maintenance, about $3,900. Again, it was due to the vacant department head position. And police, I'm projecting an overage of about $40,000 because we hired for architectural services that were not budgeted. Your building inspector is coming in under budget. That's line 31, primarily due to vacant position. Most of these differences are due to the vacancies. For roads and streets, $96,000 under budget. It's a combination of the vacancy, even though it was fairly short-lived, as well as the pause in capital projects. Park and Rec, again, due to the vacancy and the cancellation of some projects. So all in all, we're looking at a decrease on the expense side of about $144,000 as of the end of the year. I have to always qualify that with these presentations, the budget is a living, breathing document. It will look completely different come my next quarterly presentation. Because the projections are only our best estimate of what we anticipate. Now, if we get into really tightening the budget that's planned, this may be able to be tightened up better. I never projected we'd have a surplus at the end of last year of $181,000. So this will change as of June. But all in all, we're in good shape for the shape we're in. Are there any questions?
I have one. What is the status of the officers? I believe this Friday, most of the officers will be resigning, right?
I don't know for sure. I think
so. And per your talks with Sheriff Woods, are we going to be incurring an expense using their officers?
We're working on an agreement right now, but he's told me for 90 days he would try to limit that cost to zero.
So we can look at basically some salary savings from that for a month or 6 weeks, and use that to offset some of our new training, whatever we have to do for training expenses for our new officers.
And that would fall under salary expenses as well.
But is that
and I was asked the question, which I shared with all council members, approximately what would be the savings?
Right.
And estimate, if no positions are filled, about $31,000 a month. But we have payouts, accrual payouts, that have not been fully calculated yet. So that savings will not be $31,000 for the first month. It will be less. How much less, I can't say at this time. So, yes, you are correct. We should realize some savings like we have with the vacancies I presented as of March 31st. How much that will absolutely end up to be, I really can't even project at this point because of training expenses.
I understand. I work for fire rescue, and I know.
Sure. But we will have savings.
Yeah. So I was wondering, maybe if we could, knowing that we're going to have some of those projected savings, if we could apply that to say, like, one of the problems of doing the salary compensation, using it, looking for it, you know, applying those savings to get an accurate description of this problem.
That would be at council's discretion to actually take payroll budget and move it to a contractual or professional service line.
Just an option.
So, but absolutely, line item transfers are very common. They can be accomplished. I know there's been a little controversy on using payroll dollars for non-payroll related items because training is not a payroll item. But that's absolutely up to your discretion how you would like to move your budget dollars around if they're available. Okay? Any more questions?
I'd like to make a comment. We're going to have increased legal counsel fees. Okay, so we really need to see, right now, we really don't, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't really have any idea if we have savings or more expense, right, to do that. Jan, on legal counsel, line item 22, how up to date is that as far as the legal bills around the police issue and all that? 'Cause I
Oh,
know-
it's not, because the police issue happened.
Right, that's, I was assuming that, but I did not want to assume that.
Yes.
Okay,
You know, we had one legal bill for the labor attorney, that was fairly small. I may be not exactly correct, but I think that was only a few $100s.
okay,
So, and that's the only legal bill I just really remember
Sure.
at this point in time.
Okay.
But that's after this period.
okay. We're showing on line 28 for the architect services for the police facility.
Yes.
I thought that was in a budget, there was 600,000 or something like that.
It is, but with that project having been put on hold, the monies are sitting in the police facility reserve, and I just have to make an entry into the books to move that money to cover that.
Gotcha,
But this is from a budget perspective.
okay,
So an architectural services wasn't specifically identified in the budget. It was construction of a facility.
right, but everything and anything to do with that facility was supposed to come from that 600,000.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You are absolutely correct.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're wrong. That's a kind of a difference between line items.
Okay, thank you.
No, I had the same question, because if I remember right, the total architectural fee, we had paid part of it, but we still owed him part of it, depending on which way we went. And this is something I wanted to discuss, is right now, this building's put on hold, okay? Let's go ahead and pay the guy whatever else we owe him right now.
Oh, yeah.
And again, I think it comes from this reserve we got for police building, because architectural fees, again, back to my accounting world, add to the cost of the building. So it ought to come out of that 600,000, whatever. I can't remember what we owe. We paid part, we still owe him part. Let's get that straight.
He's been paid in full.
Okay.
At least I believe he has. I haven't seen a pass through invoice
I think
come through.
where that's coming from, what you're talking about, Wally, is there was like $40-something thousand
Right.
we were quoted
Mm-hmm.
for them to complete, that whole conceptual plan.
Right,
And they only got to a certain point
right.
and said, we don't want to move and do anything more until you decide whether or not you want to invest in that second lot, because you really needed more room if you
Right.
wanted to go, expand or, have additional drainage retention. But they felt like that was kind of a tight spot. So they said, well, okay, we've done the work to this point, we paid them for that, but for them to take it, the steps
Okay.
further, whatever that was going to happen, we haven't asked them to do that.
Okay. I just want to make sure whatever he's done to this point, I want to make sure he's paid.
They've been-
Again, because right now, in my opinion, it's just me talking now, I don't know what the council believes, but until we get a grant, which we have applied for, and if we get a grant, we'll go forward with a building, but until we get the grant, we're not going forward with anything. And I just don't want to owe a guy for something if he's just sitting there waiting, but if we paid him for what he's done, then that's fine. That's what I couldn't remember, had we paid him all for what he's done to this point. Okay. Okay. And when I saw this architecture, that hit me. Okay.
Any more questions?
Mm-mm.
The next schedule I want you to show you are all your reserves and your bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at starting on line 22 through line, oops, I'm sorry, keeps locking up on me. Through line 43, this is what's considered your fund balance that the auditors were talking about. It's a real different presentation than the audit report. But this is where every penny the city has is located. And I've given you definitions for each of these as to what it can be used for. Right now, our unrestricted on line 32, which pays our bills, payroll, accounts payable, daily, monthly, there, as of March 31st, it's almost $1.2 million. And we've got reserves for capital. The police department has some of their own reserves for their use. The other reserve I wanted to point out specifically is line number 40, your emergency reserve. Your emergency reserve can be used for a shortfall of revenue, say, like the pandemic hits. Or it can be used to help if there's a catastrophe that isn't funded by FEMA. With some of the storms, we don't qualify, but maybe we had to call in a contractor to remove a bunch of trees. We could use those monies. That would be unbudgeted, but it's a situation we couldn't avoid. So you have a very healthy emergency reserve. Our fund balance policy has required that reserve to be at a level of, if I remember correctly, 4 months worth of operating expenses. And that's something that's reviewed each year at budget time. I don't think it's bad to even overfund that, but the minimum you want is 4 months worth of operating expenses. And we have, of course, we have to have a debt service reserve, which is the very next line. That's required by our bond covenants. The very last reserve, the $914,000, that is your ARPA grant reserve for your stormwater, the Granada project, the intersection projects. That is all for that project. I'll probably rebudget it for next year. I'll have to get with Chad to see, will it be completed next year or will it be split up? But that reserve will go away. And a lot of these reserves are not being replenished, so to speak. For example, let's see if I can pick one. The ARPA grant won't. That'll go to zero once we finish that project. Your infrastructure equity on, and I apologize, there's no line number, in between line 37 and 38.
Right.
That was a reserve from years before I started with the city, that we spent the money this year on, and I'm sorry, I don't remember. It was a Roads and Streets item. I think it was the repair for, I don't know if it was the dump truck. It was a $15,000
Bucket truck.
It was a bucket truck. And so we used the remainder of that money plus a little bit of the gas tax money to pay for that.
Okay.
So that's where your money is. And as of March 31st, you had $7 million. So the auditor was correct. Our reserves are very healthy from where they were years ago. Debt service, this line had not been updated with the audited results, but that line, we have a balance in the third column over. Our debt service balance as of March 31st is $1,706,000.
Okay.
I do have some very good news, but I'll take questions first, and then I'll give you some good news. Are there any questions with respect to the reserves?
Not for me, I'm good.
Okay. The reserves, no, I don't have any questions. I have a question on the bank accounts, and I just was wondering where we stand on all that. I know we were moving money around with Brandon, and I know, I also know it wasn't there very long when all this was done, okay? But like the $3 million sweep account, what kind of interest we make on that?
Okay, you beat me to it.
Okay, well,
This was my good news.
I knew it was. That's true. And I wanted to make sure you didn't miss it.
As of April,
Okay.
because with the CDs, we weren't recording interest until they matured because we couldn't access that interest.
Right.
But with the implementation of our CDs now that we can liquidate them at any time with no penalty, we caught up on the interest. Since we made all these changes, which has really only been a few months.
Right.
the city has earned $44,755.
All right.
Awesome. Wait
So-
till it hits the end of the year.
So, and the Fed just raised the interest rates.
I know.
Okay, so right now, I don't anticipate when these CDs mature, it really fluctuating, if at all. Okay, I'm gonna try and work some magic and say, let's just keep it there. We'll see.
Right.
But for a few months out of the year, we may approach close to $100,000 in interest earnings. And that has not happened since I've been with the city.
Well, it's because of this interest rate environment we're in right now, which nobody's seen for, 20 or 30 years. Back when I bought my first house, when interest rates were 18%, well, but it's been years since we've seen any kind of interest rate paid like this, and the banks are adjusting them all the time, trying to keep up with this. So, I didn't want to steal your thunder, I just didn't want you to forget.
I wasn't.
Because I kept thinking, now, this is just through March, and we're already a month ahead of that, but, I was expecting it to be a good number, and it was.
And I went to Mandy a couple of days ago, and I said, who else has brought in close to $50,000 worth of revenue? I said, I think I deserve a big raise.
You'll get donuts in the morning.
Okay, hey, that works too.
No, that's because I was looking at these numbers, and I knew that suite had about $3 million in it, and I didn't see it change, and I was like, I wonder what happened. Okay, got it.
So
We're good.
We just didn't book the interest.
No, I'm cool with that.
So that really wraps up my presentation with general fund. Right now, even as of today, we're in good shape.
Good.
We're paying all our bills on time. In fact, we pay them probably faster than most agencies. We get them in, we do warrants every other week. We put the invoices in there to pay them, get them paid, get them out.
Right. Good.
So.
No, I like what Caleb said too. What did he say? We had, 9 months in all the funds? We had enough cash? I mean, I was amazed when he said it. I was like, wow, that's great.
Now, our assets, I did want to make a comment when he showed you note 4, the capital assets. Accumulated depreciation equated to almost the same amount as the undepreciated, which means our assets are very old.
Right.
So, although we're all elated with the results that I presented tonight, in the future, there's going to have to be some major purchases that can be planned for.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Right.
They can all be planned.
Right. On your question about the police, I'm going to let the chief address the officer in time, but that was a good question of how that's going to transpire, but I want the chief to kind of go over the numbers as they are, because some left last week, some left this week, and I didn't know if you know
And
that.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one other comment. I don't know if you all are aware, when Caleb mentioned OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits, and he spoke to our retirees that are on our health insurance, accounting rules are sometimes not good, because the city is not liable for any cost associated with health insurance for our retirees. But they feel that because we allow the retirees to participate in our plan, it's an implied liability, but we will not owe any money. But that implied liability creates a liability line item on our books and records. But we don't owe any money for that.
The employee owns the money, but we have to report his liability.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that. Okay. Good, Jan.
So anyway, that wraps up my presentation, and I'm all talked out.
Good. All right, we're moving right along here. Okay, department head reports. Who you want to go first, Manny?
Do you have anything?
I don't have much. The picnic tables that we purchased and stuff, that are all installed for at Dunnellon Park, Moxie Beach. They're in and done.
Yeah.
Yesterday installed the electric and everything for the new garage doors that will be coming that we budgeted for, and they are set to be installed on May 17th.
Wow, good. Good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the picnic table at City Beach. It was great. Like it.
One more thing also.
Yeah, well, that's good. And the ones over there were square, right?
We have the handicap
Right.
ones there, and then the longer.
Oh, you got a long one there too. Okay, good, good, good. And garage doors are coming.
17th, they're usually installed.
Good, all right. Okay.
You got anything else to say, Jim?
No.
I hope not.
Maybe one.
All right,
Chief?
Chief, all right. Tell us how it's going. You and Ron been working hard, I know.
We took a nap back there.
I don't blame you.
Wasn't that
I don't know how I warned you we were gonna cover the budget and the financials, but you could have slept through that.
All right, so everybody's kind of aware of what's happening. Right now, current staffing, there's Officer Gray, Officer James, Fred Depka will be working tonight, tomorrow night, and then that'll be his last, and then there's me. And then we have our non-sworn civilian, Tom Newman, he's still there. 6 sworn people have left, 1 non-sworn has left. I'm hoping, where you're talking, is there going to be payroll reserves, if you want to call it that way? I'm hoping there's going to be none. And the reason being is we're starting to get some applications in.
Oh, okay.
And if we can get some, you need to put that in me so you can ready to stand in front of it.
It's just if you're taller than short people.
So hopefully we're going to be putting some people in cars really soon. Working with Mandy and stuff on our, how to do background checks and all that, get that started. We have, if anybody's interested, the Marion County Sheriff's Office sent over a schedule of who's going to be working for the rest of this month and how it's going to work out. We are providing midnight shift tonight, tomorrow night, day shift Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. On Sunday, Marion County Sheriff's will be taking over all shifts. So they'll be working the road, they'll be handling everything. The only 3 sworn left will be Officer Bray, Officer James, and myself, and then the non-sworn civilian Tom. Sheriff Department's going to allow us to put our efforts into rebuilding the agency. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in there. Marion County Sheriff's Office is helping us out right now in our evidence room. What they said when they came over is it's probably been about 15 years since anybody has gone in there and actually really gone through our evidence room. So hopefully that's going to get cleaned up pretty soon. Williston Police Department, I can't say enough for them. They are really mentoring us well. Chief Rolls and his administrative assistant will be coming down next week, just trying to help us with specific administrative stuff that we got to do and get officers removed out of what we call our ATMS, David Systems, put new people in. And also give us some pointers in what we're looking for when we need to hire somebody for that position. They also have offered to update our current tasers. Our current tasers are way out of date. They need to be hooked up to our computer. They need to be plugged into a computer, and they need to be updated, software updated, bugs fixed, things like that. That has not been done in, I couldn't tell you how long. So they've offered to do that for us. The Ocala Police Department has assisted us with some policies and job descriptions and updates and things like that we need to go over. And then the College of Central Florida and with Coochie Technical College is working with us for new recruits and new applicants. I think we took two applications over to Withlacoochee here just the other day. That's kind of where we're at and what's happening with the agency right now. Positive things, we're getting all the cars turned in, so we can whatever's wrong with those, we can get them fixed. Start getting them cleaned up, start cleaning out some of the old stuff that's in these vehicles that have been around for a while. We're working with the city here and managing other equipment and coming up with a kind of like a response trailer type deal. Trees down, which leads me to the next thing. I had sent an email out. If you guys haven't seen it, I can resend it. A couple of y'all responded. For the council, if you email me with your name and a phone number, and I can start texting you all and keeping you up to date, like when we had the storms roll through a couple weekends ago, and the power was out for some of the churches, we could pass that on to you. Hey, power's out, Lachey's gonna come back on in about an hour. And then another tree fell, and it took out a bunch of our radio systems, computer systems, and emergency management stuff. So that's stuff you guys need to be aware of, and if we can get your numbers, we can send it to you, and things like that. It wasn't out for long, but it was out. That's kind of my update for the police department. Do you have any questions?
How many officers do we have normally as our contingent? I mean, total, and how many are out each day?
So you would have 10 officers, and out each day would be, if we're fully staffed, 4. So you'd have a day shift, an afternoon shift, and a midnight shift, and you would have a supervisor for them. And
So that's one officer out on patrol per shift?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's it. And our afternoon shift person, fluctuates half their shift in the day shift time and half their shift in the night shift time. But when it comes midnight, right, there's one officer out here for the city of Dunnellon.
Okay.
So, there's not a lot. And the Marion County Sheriff Department, they back us up, we back them up, because they only have a couple people in the Dunnellon district. And their Dunnellon district here goes all the way out to, what's the restaurant out there?
Stump Knockers.
Stump Knockers.
Right, yeah, right.
So if one of their deputies is sitting at the jail and the next deputy is at Stump Knockers, we're here by ourselves. And then we have that agreement with the sheriff department. He swore us in, and we go answer some of their calls if we can, small calls for them, and back them up.
Right.
So there could be times there ain't a soul here. So cutting officers.
I knew that raised some hairs on your desk, but I just, what I'm really looking at doing is, at some point, we gotta have a workshop so we all understand how we need to structure everything. And everything's fair game to put on the table. Doesn't mean it's gonna happen. Just wanna understand the ins and outs, the whys and all that kind of stuff so that we can do the right thing by everybody.
I agree. So then my proposal goes through with 6 more officers.
Okay.
Gotcha.
All right. You said you got 2 from with a Fuji?
They just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
These were non-sponsored students, meaning
Right.
they weren't sponsored to go to the academy by an agency.
Right.
They're looking for jobs.
Sure.
They took an application.
Good.
Doesn't mean they're going to fill it out,
Right.
but they were interested enough to take the application.
Got it.
I'm hoping to bring on, with the applications that we have received, these are veteran officers.
Right.
So we're able to hopefully turn around and put them on the road quicker than just taking somebody out of the academy.
Exactly.
And it is exactly what you said. This is an agency where somebody comes, they're here for a few years, and then they move on, which is great for our retirement system because they're putting that in their retirement system and then leave without it, right? But it's not cost effective. What do we look at? $800 for vests in that area. So you don't know what size person you're getting, and we may not have the equipment to hand them. Now we're going out and buying the
Right.
vests and different vests, inner vests, outer vests, pants, shirts.
Got it.
I've been at the agency now since 2020, even as a reserve, I have 2 pairs of pants and 2 shirts. And my pants are falling apart. They've not been replaced. Now as the chief, I have 2 polo shirts.
Right.
That's it. I don't have an ID card, I don't have a badge, I don't have nothing. So
You need to get that.
we're kind of bare bones. That's it. This is what I got. But it's coming together. I'm really happy and amazed, and thank you for the support you guys have given us, the support everybody at the city's given us. So I think this is a new day. I'm happy this happened because the future is ours right now.
Yes, right, right.
I do have one question. You say you've got some applications. I remember somebody saying at an earlier meeting that they have to go through the certification. And for the veteran officers, do they have to do that? And for the new officers? So if you've got applications now, what is your lead time before they're on, you can put them on the street as official Dunnellon police officers?
Let's just say there's 3 of them are current Florida law enforcement certified.
Okay.
Right now. So let's just say by the end of May, we can get through all their backgrounds, polygraphs, sites, all that stuff. And I can put them on the payroll June 1st. I can take those 3 officers and we're going to change things around, and we're going to do a 5-day, 5-day work week, Monday through Friday, 8-hour days, instead of the shift work to get their training done. If we can do that, I'm pretty sure the 3 of them will be on the road July 1st, if not sooner. Because we're doing that modified training.
Okay.
That's 3. The other one is, he's a gentleman from out of state. He's been in law enforcement 20-ish years, 15, 20 years in that area. He has to come down and take a certification course. But it's just a equivalency of training, so he's certified in another state. He comes down, he takes a 40-hour course here at the state of Florida. He takes a state exam, passes it, and he's jumping right on the bandwagon. So if he does that during the month of May, while he's doing his psych and everything else, he can jump on board, June 1st, be on the road in July.
Okay, so, and if we have a new hire, somebody who's not got any experience, who's just out of the academy, would that be the same timeline?
No, because we are going to focus our efforts on those people and get them done. We have 1 person to do the training.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
So we're going to focus our efforts on getting those people out and on the road. The other ones will be in the in-house where we can just do admin stuff with them. Maybe teach them how to write reports while we're sitting here, but they're not going out on the road. A normal training time for them is 12 to 13 weeks. So, and if we're back on a 12-hour shift, that's going to take a long time. So, but we're utilizing James Roberts as much as possible before he leaves. He's agreed to put as many people in my car as I can. I'll take them out for a half day, turn around, come back, take somebody else. So we're going to pump them out as fast as we can, but it's not going to be so fast you're not going to get a quality officer.
Good. Good. Okay. Good deal. Thank you for all your work. I know you guys, every time I go down there, you and Ron and Tom, everybody there, I mean, working hard, and James.
James is in that room
I know. We've got to get Tom really up to speed too on everything Mary was doing, and I know we need to get there. But that's just part of the deal.
It is, and again, like I said, I'm happy how things happen because it's a whole new day. I think we're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of where we were at a few months ago.
I think
By the end of this
too.
year, it's going to be amazing.
Right, because everybody won't carry anything into this. It's all going to be a bunch of new people, and they won't have history to bring, and they just start fresh. And sometimes that's the best way to do it. So
You made my day the other day.
How's
You
that?
called me and said, I want to go over and see what Chris is doing. Like, come on over. So that was great. So
No, I try to leave you alone. But anyway, I'm glad it's coming together. I mean, every time I hear from Andy or hear from you, I'm impressed at how fast people are applying for these jobs, and we're getting some experienced people applying, and that just speeds the process up, because an inexperienced person is going to take some time to get on board.
I'm pulling a Billy Woods, and I am poaching from other agencies, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's done that with us at the college, so he comes in and does it all the time.
Okay, all right.
So it's a-
I will say,
That's a great thing with Billy.
I had a talk with him, was it Monday night? Yeah, Monday night, I had another talk with him. And I mean, he's still, whatever I can do for you guys. Of course, he took 6 of our officers, put her 7, but he has been very helpful, trying to give us what we need.
And Major Fulford, who he has working with us, has just been, we spoke a couple times, and hey, we've got to make changes to the schedule, we'll take care of. The other night, we had somebody call in sick, so I was going to have to work midnight shift, and Major Fulford's like, no, it's uncalled for, we got it covered. So.
Well, I was hoping that would happen. When you told me what had happened, and like I said, I called Billy, I said, you know, we got it covered tonight with Chris, but we got to fix this if it keeps happening. And he said, I'll get a major to call you. So I'm glad that worked out.
Yep, taken care of right away. So.
Great. Like I said, I think he's really helping where he can. Well, good deal. Ron, you having fun?
Yes, sir. He was here to answer all budget questions.
Well, we'll let it pass this week, Ron.
Good deal.
Next quarter, you'll be on the hot seat.
No problem. That's about it. Anybody got anything?
Okay. No, I'm good. I appreciate it. I appreciate all y'all do. I really do.
Thank you very much.
And you need to get a uniform, and you need to get a badge.
One of these days, I'll find out where our vendors are.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. All right. Any other department heads?
I just have a question about, when we were talking about the salary study, you said bring that back in June. I'm not quite sure what you meant by that.
I guess Tim said he got a schedule he wants us to study, and I thought we ought to at least have it on the agenda that all of us study, whatever it is, and decide if we want to use this or we want to try something
Well,
else.
what Tim has is not a study. What he has is a spreadsheet that shows the hourly rate of the employees and what that cost is annually. And then if you take that rate and you apply it to, say, a person that gets 4 weeks of vacation every year, essentially what that cost would be, you know, for that vacation. But you really can't add that to the cost, because when they're not here and they're not getting paid and they're getting paid in vacation or sick time, it's getting paid from a different, you know what I mean? It's not that you're going to make more money. It's just that he's trying to demonstrate that the benefit is worth a certain amount of money.
Correct. Right.
So
Well-
that's not really a study. So, I mean, I guess I need some direction on what your guys are asking us to bring back to you, if anything, in July and June, if you're not going to authorize the professional study to be done.
Okay. I think this thing, you said 4 weeks of vacation. I didn't think everybody got 4 weeks vacation.
No. I just used 2023 data.
Some people get
Right,
3,
right.
Right.
some people get 5, I was
Right.
just pulling a number
Right,
out. So
right,
just
okay.
depending on years of service, different people get different amounts of time off.
Sure. Okay.
So I really would love to tell you that by next month, I could pull something together and tell you, you know, what other cities are doing, you know, benefit-wise as far as, you know, health, life, vision, dental, that kind of stuff, what they're doing as far as time off request, or time off accruals, the salaries for all the different positions, but I just don't know that I can accomplish that, because that's a lot of work.
Right.
To try and do that that level of research and have all that back to you by next month.
Right. What I was envisioning was, when I'll get the spreadsheet resent to you. I'll go through it with you and make for accuracy and anything that you think needs corrected is not applicable. We can clean it up, for that, because that's pretty encompassing and pretty busy also. And then I was going to sit down and get on the internet and see what I can find, okay, as far as getting a hold of the cities, different information and stuff like that, and then bring that back, and we could that would determine whether we need a professional study done or whether we can do it or not.
Okay. I know, what's that guy? Keeps coming to the meetings. He had that list of a lot of cities.
Right. His just had wages, though. It was only...
Yeah, it was only wages. We need, like you say, we need to know what do they pay for medical insurance and all that kind of junk, because that adds to it. Does the employee pay all of it? Employee pay half of it? Employee pay none of it? I mean, we need to understand that too.
Right.
Because that affects all this. Okay, well, once you put together what you can put together, I mean, I'm going to just tell you, my thought is just pay $5,000 or something like that.
Except the only thing, if we were going to do that, we may as well just use, I think Robert was his name? The man that came in here and gave us that spreadsheet? Bradshaw. Yes, right. So spend $5,000. She was going to do nothing, that company was going to do nothing any more than what he did. I asked her the question when she did her presentation. She was only going to do salary. So we can do that pretty quickly, and he's already done the work if we're going to make the assumption that he's accurate. But again, it's just a small piece of the pie.
I would like to, this is a suggestion, of course, if we just take and look at Crystal River and Williston. I mean, they're our region. We know what the general pay is for workers and office staff within this small region. We can't compare ourselves to Ocala.
No. Right.
And,
Right.
Crystal River does not have their own police
Right, there's going to be,
department.
no, right, they went with the sheriff.
But you could look at the other administrative positions if you're going to look at it all at one time.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion. I'll start with Wilson and Janet, and they're working with us already, it sounds like.
Yeah, I can get you Mike Rolls' number, he's the chief over there.
Okay.
He'll give for the police side, I know, he's got it all worked up. Now, the staff side, he can get you where you need to go, for sure. In fact, I got his number, I'll give.
say it's all public record.
Right.
You ask for it,
Right.
they will be given.
Chris, do you know if, does Chiefland and Cross City, those towns have police departments, or are they in Levy County?
Chiefland has their own police department. yeah.
Right.
So we could look at some towns like.
Well, I know Rolls told me that Chiefland's got their own police, Cedar Key has their own police, and of course Wilson has theirs. Those are towns similar size to us. Cedar Key, of course, is smaller, but Wilson's a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay.
Okay, so I'm clear on that. I think I know where we're going.
Williston have their own police department? Williston, yes.
Yeah, Wilson does.
The only other thing I wanted to mention, because it got brought up a couple times tonight about us working on an ordinance for the mooring in the river, and it's not an ordinance. I did reach out to FWC, and I did do some research and discovered statute 327.4109 that says the owner or operator of a vessel or floating structure may not anchor or moor such that the nearest approach of the anchored or moored vessel or floating structure is, number one, within 150 feet of any public or private marina, boat ramp, boatyard, or other public vessel launching or loading facility. So what I did is I went on the Marion County Property Appraiser's map and did kind of measurement, there's a little measurement tool, so you can kind of tell how, the distance from, and it looks like it's right from where the launch goes into the river to the other side of the river, about 150 feet. So you can go 150 feet in that direction and north and south of the ramp. So I put all that into an email to FWC, sent it over to them, and she came back with what, it's not an ordinance. She said we can use we should be good to cite the state statute, and we have to fill out a Florida Uniform Waterway Marker permit application. And what that would do is then, once that all gets processed, and it's got to go through the Army Corps of Engineers and FDEP, so there's several agencies that get involved. But I guess once that gets through the process and it gets approved, then FWC goes out and they mark the area with their markers that say no mooring from here to here or something like that. But it's under their jurisdiction. We just have to fill out the application and ask them to do it.
Okay.
I have no idea. I haven't gotten that far.
No, I'm sorry, I misspoke when I said ordinance. It's not an ordinance, you're right. I remember you telling me this. We have to apply for it.
Yeah.
And then they put the markers out and they do everything if they approve it.
And Satiki Village has that at their ramp up there. They used to have a bunch of boats parked around it and stuff, and then a few years ago, the FWC, so they must have already done this process, because now they have the FWC buoys out there that don't allow boats in that area anymore.
Okay.
So that's as far as I've gotten, so.
Okay.
I'll do that while I'm working on salary stuff.
Just want to make sure you don't have anything to do, huh?
I'll have to start working on Fridays and Saturdays, yes.
I'm sorry, I misspoke on that. Okay. Department heads, we through with those?
I'm done.
All right. Liaisons, any liaison here wants to speak? Or we're good? All right. City Attorney. Andrew, I'm sorry, it's almost 8:30.
I do have one liaison thing before Andrew goes.
Okay.
Public Works and I are going to meet with Kimley Horn tomorrow morning on the Granada Road project. So they're going to get us up to speed, and then we'll be able to answer some of the questions that were brought up earlier about budget stuff, when they're actually going to do construction and stuff like that after tomorrow, hopefully.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you're talking about that thing over at Granada, that project there?
Yes.
Okay,
That's
good.
Right.
Good. Thank you. Thank y'all for handling that. Okay, now Andrew.
Okay, might be slightly longer than my usual, 2 minutes or less, but not much longer. Just wanted to give you, my single report tonight is on vacation rentals and what has been going on in the legislature. You may have already seen that in the news, just to recount what happened, because I know that some of the news articles really didn't provide an accurate portrayal of what occurred. But essentially what happened, the Senate went along and adopted their version of the bill, which at one point was identical to the House bill. The House went in a little bit of a different direction and added additional restrictions, which basically strips local governments of any ability to enforce any type of licensure or registration. And the Senate didn't like that. The Senate, on the very last day, right before noon, had asked the House to reconsider. The House said they would not reconsider. So the bill died for this session. Where to go with that? I think that is up to you and some things to keep in mind. I think, there have been efforts since the last big changes that we saw in 2011 and 2014 to adopt vacation rental legislation. It comes up frequently. I think we're definitely going to see it next year. We've seen some clear lines of where the legislature might like to go, but things do change, and so it's a moving target. It really is. I think that the trend currently, of course, is to standardize the registration process. Everybody agreed on that. Where we're not seeing agreement is limitations. Limitations beyond that are pretty much, it looks like there will be some restrictions there. Where we're seeing, of course, the differences in enforcement and what powers local governments ultimately will have. But we do see a trend, I think, in both houses of moving towards, basically
keeping vacation rentals so that they're regulated similarly to other businesses when outside of the registration efforts. But other than that, of course, don't know where it'll go and what'll come up next. And there'll be some new members, of course, in the legislature next year, and we'll just have to see what they do and where that leaves you all and where you want to go. I'm all ears, and we'll be, of course, assist in whichever direction you want to go.
Okay.
Rich? Well, I've talked with Dave, I've printed up a lot of stuff, I've read a lot of stuff, and about the ordinance and about the planning commission suggestions, I saw that, and talking to Andrew tonight, maybe it's going to change.
Oh, yeah.
So my suggestion would be that we look at scheduling a workshop for us where we can just sit down and go through the ordinance with the planning committee's recommendations and the first draft that I went through. We come to an agreement and we go ahead and then we look at putting an ordinance in so that we have something that at least start to govern something. And then as changes are made, we can make changes, because from what Andrew told me tonight, it's just constantly going to be a moving target. And if we just are constantly waiting for somebody else to do something, then we're not going to be able to have any control over it. It's just going to continue to get out of hand and out of hand. And just like the lady said tonight with the music, somebody goes out and sets up the music, but we don't have any ordinance to protect them, we can't really do anything. If my major concern is that if you've got 20 houses on the river and each one, with people that live there, they generally don't use the river every weekend, but you start putting 20 houses on the river with 6 or 7 people. Now you've got 140 people extra on the weekend, and we're passing ordinance tonight and already curtailing the rights of what people have been used to doing because of more people. And talking to Dave too, he said that over, I understand, on the east side of Blue Run, they're looking to build more and more houses. And my guess is that more of those are going to be looking at vacation rentals for the spring and the river, because that's a very lucrative thing. So it's just going to be a compounding problem. So let's go ahead and look at reviewing it, getting an ordinance in, and just telling people it's going to be a moving target. And I don't know, Andrew, what do you think about that?
I think that's entirely up to council. It's a completely reasonable approach. Just a story that goes along with it. I can tell you with no ego at all that I became the state's preeminent legal expert on ride sharing several years ago. And had a client that wanted the Rolls Royce of ride sharing regulation put in place. It was in place for about 6 months, and then legislative session came up and preempted local governments, and it came right off the books. So, you know, and then other things we've seen where the legislature hasn't done anything. That, you know, there was forecasted that this was going to be a big year for this particular topic. So, you know, I think that if you have an issue and there's a problem, there's nothing wrong with taking a look and addressing it. It's just, you know, of course, being aware that, hey, you know, things might change. So that certainly, that approach makes sense to me. You know, multiple different approaches make sense to me. Whatever you all are comfortable with.
I do have a question about it. I know that for Jan, and we discussed a lot about budgets, and this is something I discussed with Dave the other night. If you suddenly have 160 people on the river on the weekend, the police generally, and Chris, you'll be able to tell me if I'm right or wrong, but you don't spend a lot of time in the neighborhood dealing with just the regular people. Is that correct? It's very, they might call you once a month or once every 6 months.
Correct.
But once you start getting more of these vacation homes, we're going to have more of our police officers shifting over to localized parts. And if we've got one officer and he's tied up all day doing that, then the rest of Dunnellon suffers for it. So if we're going to look at that ordinance, what would be our ability to put in some kind of fee or tax to supplement extra officers, because we're going to have more people on the river? And there's going to be more destruction of facilities, the bathrooms and things like that. So we need to me, we not only need to look at licensing or putting in some of these procedures and rules for vacation rentals, but looking at what the long-term effects are and how much it's going to cost us out of the budget. And is there any way that we can improve that so that we can still provide the same level of service without a group of outside people taking all of our services and leaving?
Good point.
First of all, I totally think in June, we need to start working on that.
Okay.
And have a special session to address them. The only thing I know the zoning group, y'all did finish that and got it to us. I'm also aware of some things that got struck out of that the council may want to put back in. Okay, and I'm just being honest. So I think we start with what planning and zoning gives or gave us, right? Okay. But I also think we might want to go back to what was Andrew and his firm originally drafted and look and see, and I don't know how to do it simply, but know what was pulled out. And we may want to leave it out. My biggest fear on this whole thing, just since we talk about lawyers and Andrew don't take offense to this, we've already been threatened that whatever we do, they're going to sue us. Okay, so that's fine. I want to have something that mirrors the state law as close as possible. Okay? If it's in state law, my first reaction is going to be, it's going to be in Dunnellon's law. Okay? Because if somebody sues us, I want to be able to turn around and say, you need to sue the state of Florida. Because our ordinance looks just like our state statute.
Well, I think that the state doesn't, right now, the state doesn't have that process in place. Now, if you mean the proposed legislation, I mean, it's been proposed, hasn't been adopted. So there's not something to mirror yet, but there's some guidelines, and we know the direction it's moving. I think where you might see some pushback are looking at things like occupancy restrictions. Potential for those, and, you know, that type of thing is, I mean, that wouldn't be allowed under the state proposed legislation. It's not state law right now. And, you know, so parking, other things, you know, and of course, occupancy is difficult to address across the board because of the Fair Housing Act, which doesn't apply to transient rentals. We're talking about transient here. So if the legislature removed that, really, there'd be no way to really regulate occupancy effectively. But things like parking and so forth, you can do across the board. And so those are some of the things that might be part of the workshop discussion, you know, and state type of things. We've seen these ordinances upheld. That has been the trend of the courts. So, you know, not all of it is binding law per se, but yeah, we do have some guidelines here.
Well, that's what we need to look for you and your help there. But what I'm trying to say is, I do know what finally came from planning and zoning was a good law or a good ordinance, so to speak. But they had struck out some things to get it finished. And I want to make sure, do we as a council want to keep those struck out, or do we want to put them back, or some of them back?
Well, my suggestion would be to, having read both of them, is that if we do have a special session, is we have both copies. And we just go through I know, like one of them was the parking. They don't want limitations on parking. But you don't want 20 cars parking in a residential neighborhood. And so rather than go through every ordinance, we just go through the differences between the two. And just discuss that and decide what we're going to do. With Andrew's help. And it should be a fairly fast process. Because it was really only about 10 articles, 10 paragraphs. They really had a lot of discrepancy.
No, I agree. And I'm just saying, let's get them together, like you're saying, and side by side and figure out. And the other thing, it seemed like they were pushing at this legislation that did not pass. I got the impression in reading it that whatever we do for the short-term rental folks, we got to do for our residents. So if we're going to restrict cars in the yard for short-term rental, we got to restrict that for our residents too, is the way I was reading it. Now, it didn't pass, but that was the way it looked like the thing was going.
That's a potential, and I would say likely potential future outcome if you know, the legislature can find.
So I think we just need to keep those kind of things in mind too. Look and see what we got, and then look to see what didn't pass, but where was this going? And again, I think we come up with the best thing we can, and we do it and go forward. But I want to get this done. I think we had to delay it, and we need to get back to it pretty quick. Okay. So
I hate to be the bad news person, but My opinion is you're all biting off more than you can chew on, okay? Because here's the point. We have a problem right now with our law enforcement personnel handling their general duties right now. Okay, when you're talking a violation of an ordinance, and they have, who's gonna write tickets? Law enforcement or code enforcement? Who's gonna go to court when the landlord and the people involved say, we disagree with you and we're not gonna pay this fine, okay? And that's the other thing. What's gonna be the punitive action involved with this?
We take their license to rent out. They won't be able to rent the property. That's how we end it.
And you know something? You just mentioned libel. There you go. You can't tell anyone they can't rent out their property because they had a problem with one 3-day Friday, Saturday night client.
Watch me.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Okay.
I don't think it can happen.
I think there's a difference though.
And I'm just, hold on one second. The biggest complaint we had was from residents of Blue Coat. They have a homeowners association.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Nope.
Okay,
They let it go.
they let it go. Well, I'm
So
just
now they
saying,
can't regulate
in other communities, the homeowners associations are taking a hold of this, and they talk with and have conferences with to try to stop these problems as they see them coming into their neighborhood. Now all of a sudden it's thrown in a heap and everybody's saying, oh, you gotta do something now, you gotta do something now. You better watch out where y'all are heading.
Since Julianne is not here tonight, I'll take a page out of her book. We should table this for the workshop that it's going to be into.
Yes, of course.
Good move. Okay. Is there anything else we need to talk about?
I'm good.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to make sure, we talked about last week, starting a meeting at 4:30 in June. We were gonna do the sunshine law and include the other boards. I just wanna make sure everybody's still on board with that. We wanna do that as a special workshop before the regular workshop, I think is how I had it set up.
Okay.
So that for next month, and are you going to just put short-term rentals on your regular agenda for the workshop next month, or do you want to set a special workshop next
We
month?
need to set a special workshop.
So you're
Later
not
in
going to have
June.
an opportunity to do that after tonight until your next workshop in June, which will be, I don't know if you want to, it'll be June 5th. June
Right.
5th will be your workshop, so you can set it then. I just want to make sure if y'all wanted to go ahead and get something on the calendar, now you could.
Okay, yeah, the 5th is the meeting, workshop, and the 14th is the regular meeting.
Yes.
We need to have a special workshop for short-term rentals in June. I'm okay with starting at 4:30 on the 5th. Are y'all good with that? Okay.
Start at 4:30.
I'm sorry, well, what day did you say?
4:30
The
on the
5th.
5th,
On the
and that's just starting an hour
Right.
early for the sunshine law.
Right, I got it.
Just got,
Right,
training with Andrew.
sure.
And then y'all just have to pick a day, either tonight or on the 5th, when you want to have your special meeting. And I just pointed out to y'all the last, which I'm not going to be here the 19th, the 20th, and 21st, because I'll be at the FACC conference. But if you decided to do it on one of those days, I really, it's not necessary that I be here for that. Michelle can certainly handle it.
Well, let's see. What about the 7th,
Much better for me.
The 7th?
which is, we have a regular meeting or workshop on the 5th, have another workshop on the 7th.
So the one workshop will be the sunshine.
know, the first one is our regular workshop for June and the sunshine.
Okay.
The second will be solely dedicated to short-term rental.
Okay.
Would that work?
Yeah, with that.
Andrew, does that work for you?
I will have to check. As of right now, it does look, this calendar hasn't updated, but it does look like that evening's open. I don't have a regular meeting on that evening.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and schedule it, and that way you can put out an agenda or whatever within so many days of when you need to do it. I just think we need to get going on this.
And do y'all want to start that early?
It don't matter to me. I can start at 4:30.
I'm good with that.
Julianne's the one that has trouble getting here early. But, I mean, we can run it by her. I'd say if she can do it at 4:30, let's do it at 4:30. If she can't, we'll do it at 5:30. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn this meeting? Oh, public comment. Oh, that's right. No, we don't have public comment anymore. Can you wait till the 5th, David? Okay. Sorry. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Can't get in here, right? I mess things up all the time.